A 5-pound bag of wet sawdust. That's it. That's the whole business. It costs a grower somewhere around $4 or $5, depending on where you buy. Put blue oyster in that bag, and about 2 weeks later, it hands you roughly $12 of mushrooms. Put lion's mane in the exact same bag, on the exact same shelf, in the exact same 2 weeks, and you're looking at closer to 25. Nothing else changed. Same fan, same humidifier, same minutes of your life. Now multiply that by every shelf in the room, every week for a year. That's the answer to the question, and I'm giving it to you 30 seconds in. If I had one small room and it had to pay for itself, most of it would be lion's mane. Shiitake and king oyster can both beat it on price per pound in the right market. Lion's mane wins anyway because a small room only has so many shelves, and the number that decides your income is dollars per square foot per week. Almost nobody tracks that number. It's the one that quietly runs the whole thing. Stay with me though, because there's a version of this where lion's mane is the worst possible choice, and I've watched people order 400 blocks before they found that out. Picture the setup, because it's probably close to yours. Somebody clears out a spare bedroom or the back half of a garage, 2 shelving units, a humidifier from the hardware store, a small inline fan, a cheap sensor stuck to the wall, maybe 80 square feet of usable floor. And the first question is always the same one: which mushroom sells for the most? That question is where the money starts leaking. Say a shelf holds 10 blocks. A species that turns over in 15 days at $10 a pound will earn that shelf roughly twice what a 30-day species earns at the same price. Same room, same power bill, same you. Flip it around, and a mushroom that sells for $20 a pound while tying up your shelf for 2 months is one of the worst tenants you'll ever have.
Which is exactly what happens with shiitake, and it catches people every single time. Chefs love it, customers already know how to cook it, it holds in a fridge for 2 weeks or more, which makes delivery routes so much easier. But if you're colonizing your own blocks, shiitake commonly wants 8 to 12 weeks of incubation before it fruits at all. In a room this small, that's your entire production floor sitting there doing nothing for 2 months while you pay to keep it warm. There is a workaround, which is buying blocks already colonized and just fruiting them, and it changes the picture completely. I'll come back to that. Now, oysters. I want to be fair here, because oysters earned their reputation. They're forgiving. They'll eat straw that costs you almost nothing. Biological efficiency runs anywhere from 80 to 150%, and you can be harvesting somewhere around 3 weeks from inoculation. That speed is real money in your pocket. But then the math gets rude. Blue and pearl oysters are the first thing every new grower plants, so in a lot of towns, the market is already drowning in them. They bruise if you look at them wrong. Pearl oysters picked on Thursday are getting questionable by Saturday, and most oyster strains want enormous amounts of fresh air, which in a small sealed room means either a bigger fan than you planned on, or long skinny stems with tiny caps that nobody at the market wants to buy. King oyster is fascinating for the opposite reason. It stores 2 to 3 times longer than a pearl oyster, so you can harvest Thursday and deliver Monday without sweating. It's dense, which means a pound is 3 or 4 mushrooms instead of a fluffy pile that looks like nothing on a scale. Restaurants pay well for it. The catch is that it's fussy. Sterilized, supplemented sawdust, a cold shock to trigger pinning, a tighter temperature window, and it does better with a casing layer on top, which is one more step to get wrong. Beautiful second species, rough first one. Chestnut mushrooms sit in a strange middle spot. Lovely texture, good shelf life, gorgeous on a market table. They're slower than oysters. They come in small clusters, so the weight adds up painfully slowly. And outside a handful of cities, most shoppers have never heard of them. You'll spend your Saturday explaining instead of selling. Which brings us back to lion's mane. And this part surprised me the first time I sat down and added it up. From opening a colonized block to harvest, lion's mane usually runs 10 to 14 days. That's oyster territory, so you're not paying the shiitake tax on space. Biological efficiency on supplemented hardwood commonly lands between 90 and 140%. A 5-pound block will typically give you 1 to 1.5 pounds of fresh mushroom across its fleshes, and growers running tight conditions report more. In the U.S., fresh lion's mane commonly moves at $15 to $24 a pound, and higher at some farmers markets, though that swings hard depending on where you live. Then there's the piece that has nothing to do with cultivation at all.
Lion's mane is the one gourmet mushroom where somebody else already paid for your marketing. People walk up to your table already knowing the name, already wanting it. I'm not making any health claims about it, and neither should you at your stall, but the demand is sitting there and it walks towards you. So where does it fall apart? Stale air is the big one. Lion's mane in high carbon dioxide doesn't die dramatically, it just goes weird on you. Instead of that clean white pom-pom, you get a shaggy coral thing with fingers running in every direction. Perfectly edible, very hard to sell at a premium. Keep CO2 under roughly 1,000 parts per million, and that mostly stops happening. The other one is timing. Harvest a day late and those white spines start turning yellow, then tan, and the smell goes sour fast. Oysters give you a small grace period. Lion's mane gives you almost none. And if you have no buyer lined up, you've now got something beautiful and fragile and expensive sitting in a cooler hoping for a customer, which is a bad way to lose money. Here's what the room itself needs. Lion's mane wants hardwood sawdust, not straw. Most growers run either 80% hardwood with 20% wheat bran or the 50-50 sawdust and soy hull blend people call master's mix. Either way, it has to be fully sterilized rather than pasteurized, because that extra nitrogen feeds contaminants just as happily as it feeds your mycelium. Fruit it in the 60s to low 70s Fahrenheit, humidity around 85 to 95%, with real fresh air exchange and a bit of light. You don't need grow lights. A cheap LED strip on a timer does the job. Harvest while the spines are still white and hanging straight down, and cut flush at the base instead of twisting. And here's a detail that costs people money without them ever noticing. Stop misting the fruit directly a day or two before you pick. Water sitting on those spines is what kicks off the yellowing, and it knocks days off your shelf life before the mushroom ever reaches anybody. So how do you start? Sell first. Before you buy a single block, take a few pounds to 3 restaurants and 1 market table and see what happens. If a chef says yes, ask what day and what quantity, because a chef who wants 4 pounds every Tuesday is worth far more than one who says something enthusiastic and vague. One channel people skip is the weekly subscription. Ask a local vegetable CSA whether you can add a half-pound bag to their boxes. Prepaid, predictable, no booth fee, no Saturday standing in the rain hoping for foot traffic. Small farms often say yes just to make their box look more interesting. Then buy blocks instead of making them. Ready-to-fruit blocks from a decent supplier cost more per unit, and they will save you a fortune while you're learning. You skip the pressure sterilizer, you skip the clean room, and you find out whether your fruiting conditions work before you've spent thousands on equipment. Start with 15 to 20 blocks, not 100. Run about 70% lion's mane and 30% blue oyster. The oyster keeps cash moving weekly and keeps you visible. The lion's mane is where your margin lives. Track 4 numbers in a notebook: yield per block, days from opening to harvest, pounds you didn't sell, and repeat orders. That last one predicts whether this turns into a business better than anything else you'll write down. Use paper, not plastic clamshells, which trap moisture and turn a good harvest slimy. Paper bags or vented containers kept between about 34 and 40 degrees, never washed before storage. On pricing, work backward from your labor. Block cost, electricity, packaging, market fee, driving, then count your hours properly. A lot of small growers discover they've been paying themselves about $4 an hour to undercut everyone else at the market and calling it a business. And please don't scale early. The most common way a profitable mushroom turns unprofitable is a grower who has one great month, triples their block order, and then finds out their room can't hold humidity at that density and their market can't absorb the extra weight. Now they're composting product they already paid for. Let the sales grow first and let the room chase them. One more thing worth knowing: every pound you throw away costs you more than that pound was worth, because you already spent the block, the space, the water, and the 2 weeks on it. A dehydrator and a decent scale will protect more of your margin in a year than almost anything else you can buy for $100. So if you take one idea away, take this one. Lion's mane is the best bet for most small grow rooms right now because it fruits on an oyster's clock at close to double the price, and people already walk up wanting it before you open your mouth. But that only holds if you're picking it on time and moving air properly. Get those two things right, and almost any decent species will pay you something. Get them wrong, and the most expensive mushroom on earth will still lose you money. If this video was informative, then comment yes. That motivates us to produce more videos like this.